He's a Pro Football Hall of Famer and a friend of the show and a friend in general. He is none other than Howie Long. How are you, Howie?
I'm good. Good to be home.
I bet. I bet it is after a long slog of a season. So, what were your impressions of Super Bowl 54? What's your lasting impression of that game, sir?
I think there's been a changing of the guard in terms of Patrick Mahomes in the quarterback position. I think his ability throughout the course of the playoffs and that football team's ability to I think coming into the week I thought you can't make the same kind of mistakes that you've made in the previous two games in terms of penalties, drop balls, turnovers, etc., and win versus this kind of a team. I really like San Francisco's defense. I really like their run game. I think Jimmy, when he is in that play-action pass mode and, there's 6 or 7 initially in protection and he's comfortable and there's a free runner, that's his game. And I think Kansas City showed that, throw caution to the wind and, forget about clock management, forget about turnovers, forget about, being down by 10 in the fourth quarter, with 7 minutes left. And, a guy who had not had really a good game, a great game, they all of a sudden put 21 points up and, in a flash, and I think it's a credit to Andy, and it's a credit to the quarterback, and it's particularly a credit to the defense, which I think Steve Spagnuolo, who famously was the Giants' defensive coordinator when they played the undefeated Patriots team, and I didn't see any way that the Giants could beat the Patriots, and that improbable play where Eli suddenly looks like Kyler Murray, and he breaks 5 tackles and tosses the ball up to a receiver who hadn't caught a ball in weeks in practice, and he catches the ball not only in the biggest moment but catches it on his head. The Super Bowl it's larger than life now, and with the 2 weeks leading up to it, I think everything is analyzed, regurgitated. You can hear 72 different perspectives because we live in a day and age when there's a show on every 5 minutes in a different format that you can overanalyze the game. So it's a lot of fun, but certainly by the time the game rolls around, I think the players are ready to go.
Well, and in terms of the analysis, Howie Long here on the Rich Eisen Show, there's a ton after it's all over. What do you think Kyle Shanahan is thinking today? What do you think's going through his temples at this very moment, Howie?
Boy, oh boy. I feel bad for him. I really do. Knowing how it's making it to the Super Bowl is the equivalent of climbing Mount Everest, and some people falter at base camp 1, 2, 3. When you're in the Super Bowl and you're 7 minutes away from with a 10-point lead, and, you go back to the Patriots game, I wouldn't say this to me was not as, questionable as, run the ball 3 times versus the Patriots and, you're the Super Bowl champion. And I don't care what the personnel is. I don't care who you have at quarterback. I don't care who you have at wide receiver. And some of that's on the head coach, because the head coach at that point should have said, and, I've talked to Jimmy about this, the head coach should have said, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to run the ball 3 times. Let's get out of here with a win and get it done. Now, this was a little bit more complex, but I'm just not a believer in when you're running the ball the way they were running the ball, although it was not, you take away the Deebo Samuel, reverse play, and, the number goes way down. But still, Kansas City and, talking to their players after the game, they were really happy that San Francisco got away from the run game. And what that does is it puts the onus on Jimmy Garoppolo, who, could end up being a really, great quarterback for them. But at this point, he's not the guy. If you're not running the ball extremely well, you're not running play action pass, and you go back and look at his highlights throughout the course of the season, and I looked at everything, and 98% of it was off play action pass, and there's usually a free runner, and he's really good at that. He missed throws, he missed receivers, didn't see them. The throw he missed downfield to Emmanuel Sanders, here's a guy that, was a great acquisition from a leadership standpoint. It gives them another receiver. When you really think about it, San Francisco really doesn't have a true number one. Deebo Samuel is a really impressive player, but he's not your prototypical number one guy, but he's so versatile, and he's so tough, and he's so hard to bring down after the catch. But Emmanuel Sanders was a good pickup, but he's not a guy who can separate. And here was a situation where he runs through the double coverage, and he's open, and that's game, set, match. And it's a throw that, if you're going to be in that elite category where you're being paid $30-35 million a year, you got to make.
So, do you think that Shanahan is sitting here thinking if Jimmy G's the guy, and Lynch is thinking that, or what is their next move here?
I'm not sure what they're thinking, but I think it's pretty at this point. And Terry and I talked about it a little bit throughout the course of the week, and riding back in that 2-hour drive back down to South Beach from the stadium, talked a little bit about that. And, he likes Jimmy G, and with good reason. I mean, we forget how young he is and how few games he's played. But then you flip it over to the other side. And, in this day and age where we have specialized athletes at the high school level and even below that, where they're just focusing in on one sport, and they're going to the showcase camps and the, 7-on-7, passing camps, and that's all they do. Patrick was a 3-sport athlete coming out of high school, and I think he had 3 scholarship offers coming out of high school, which is, to me, absurd, almost as absurd as him dropping to where he dropped, and Kansas City trades up and gets him. I think being a 3-sport athlete as he was, and having grown up around professional sports with his dad, the moment's not too big, and I think you see elements of all 3 of those sports in his game. His ability to, extend plays and essentially be a point guard on rerouting receivers that are, in a complex, downfield environment where, you've got to anticipate people being open. He's like a point guard. And then, the middle infielder with off-platform throws at different, arm slots, that's middle infielder turning too. And then his ability to get from vertical to horizontal really quickly. It's like there are people that have those elements to their game, like a Russell or a Kyler Murray. But he runs a 4. I think he runs a 4.3.
He's amazing.
I think he ran a 4.3, and that was what I had heard. Patrick is not that. He's a 4.7 guy. But he's so instinctive, and he reads coverages so well, and the moment's not too big for him. And when you falter, you struggle. You've thrown 2 interceptions, and it's not your day to this point, and you have the wherewithal to gather yourself and be up for the moment. And he certainly was, and that's why he was the MVP.
Howie Long, a few more minutes left with him here on the Rich Eisen Show. Ask the poll question of Howie, because Howie, you just obviously opined about how special an athlete Mahomes is. He's 24. He's already got a Super Bowl MVP, a league MVP, a Super Bowl championship. Only human being to accomplish that before age 25. And Andy Reid, with 200-plus career wins as a regular season coach, just added a Super Bowl championship, and he's just 61 years old. So ask the question of Howie Long, Chris.
All right, Howie, which AFC team most in the way of a potential Chiefs dynasty here? So AFC only. Browns, Ravens, Texans, wherever Tom Brady plays.
What do you think, Howie?
The Tom Brady question is so complex because if Tom goes anywhere, I think he really didn't have the pieces around him to play at a high level, and whether they do that or Harry kind of bounces back and Edelman is back from surgery and all those things. And last year was Devlin and Gronk as the blockers and the play action pass. That's a lot to do. I would say Baltimore. I think Baltimore is a really, really physical, tough football team that unfortunately ran into a team that was ready for the moment and ready for the to match them physically, particularly in their defensive front. And I think about the fourth down plays, and I think about their ability to shut that down. And they made enough plays, and I think they're kind of a reflection of their coach, and they'll be better too.
Yeah, I think they will be also, and I look forward to seeing Lamar Jackson and Mahomes maybe battling it out in an AFC Championship game. I do. I really do.
Yeah.
I think their coach is terrific. He won Coach of the Year for a reason. I'm still very high on Lamar Jackson, even though a lot of people think that he might not be a so-called big game guy. He certainly looked pretty darn good against the New England Patriots in the regular season. He hasn't won a playoff game yet, I know. But
people that think he's not a big game
well, I mean,
guy.
they just look how
that entire offense was really just built around him. And my only question with him is, inevitably they will get you. It's just the way it is.
You mean defenses?
The more you run the ball, the more you expose yourself. There are big, physical, fast people who, given the right opportunity or the wrong, spot for him, could deliver the kind of blow that, could in some way impair his career. Mm-hmm. That's the concern. You certainly would like to see him be more judicial in terms of getting down. We talked about the kid in Arizona, for example. I mean, how quickly does he get down? How quickly does Russell get down? And knowing when to get down and fight another play. And I think that's something he needs to, kind of develop and evolve. And I think he will.
I do too. Well, Howie, I appreciate you coming on. Before I let you go, other than doing TV, it's very rare where I could come up with an instance where, I kind of feel like Howie Long right now. I haven't acted in, say, action films. I haven't done pretty much of your resume. But yesterday, Howie, my 11-year-old son Xander in his 5th grade B basketball team game scored his first 2 career points, and I know what you must have felt like when your son won the Super Bowl, Howie.
It's interesting. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
It's so interesting because I tell people this, and I did an appearance with Kyle down in Miami, and I'd never done anything with him before, and
yep.
I was really kind of blown away. It's like very thought-provoking guy and interesting, and I think he was on ESPN Chicago today, and he co-hosted for the day, and listening to him, and I was just blown away. But what people don't understand is the feeling you had at that game.
Yep.
It's the same feeling I had at, whether it's Kyle being successful, Howie or Chris, and the 2 big games with Philadelphia and with New England. It's just it's being covered by millions of people on TV. It's the same exact feeling you have in Pop Warner or youth basketball or anything. I tell folks that, and they find that hard to believe, but I really believe that, and it's a great feeling, and you're happy for your kids, and congratulations.
Thank you, Howie. When his team had only had 4 points in the first quarter, and then only 4 points entering the fourth quarter, I'm glad I did not have
those games. They are painful.
I'm glad I did not have 22 high definition cameras showing off my facial expression to millions of people across the country.
That's the only difference. And then, Rich, hopefully at some point, he advances and, has an opportunity to play wherever. Doing anything like that, you're going to have to deal with people being critical of your son, and then it becomes like I want your address, I want to come to your house, and I want to pummel you. That's how you feel about people that are being critical of your kids.
Oh my gosh! How is Kyle? Before I let you go, is he doing all right? Is he feeling good?
Great.
Okay.
He's down to about 290.
Okay.
He looks great. He sounds great. He did a lot of things with media down there and made a couple of appearances, and I think he had a really good week for him. And Chris and him did his podcast together down there, which was really cool to see those two. Listen, when you got three sons, you go to the emergency room a lot, and they beat each other up, and it's a problem. But to see those two, as grown-ups being civil and somewhat entertaining is kind of cool.
That's good. So are you, Howie. Thanks for the call. We'll chat soon. Great season on Fox.
Anytime, partner.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. That's Howie Long right here.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.